And welcome to our first episode in Basic Xi'an. I'm your host, the Xenolinguophile, lover of all the alien languages in Star Citizen, but today we're going to talk about the newly released beginnings of the Xi'an language. In this lesson, we're going to go over some of the basic greetings and conversation starters to get you speaking and writing Xi'an as quickly as possible. We will also cover the verbs and o, and we'll give you a handy tip to help recognize if you're being asked a question in Xi'an. Before we begin, I just want to start by making you aware that I am going to assume a couple of things about your handling of the Xi'an language. The first assumption is that you know the neutral pronouns. These pronouns are found on page 23 of the document titled An Overview of the Xi'an Language for Diplomats, which is located on the RSI website. I'll include a link to that PDF document in the description below, and you should be aware that whenever I refer to the PDF, I'm referring to this resource. The second assumption I'm going to make is that you have read pages 21 to 22 and 26 to 29 in the PDF. This hits some of the basic grammar that you need to know while skipping the sections on the Xi'an script, which we will not cover in this channel for some time. If you need help reading some of the Xi'an language in the PDF file, you can check the description box below for a link to a memorized group where you can learn the vocabulary from the sections we are discussing for free, including audio examples of how the words are spoken. That memorized group will also be updated with the vocabulary from this video series. There's also an accompanying vocabulary video that you can watch if you just want to practice speaking the vocabulary that you're going to see in today's lesson. The last assumption is actually a humble request, and that's for patience. I used to label this channel the Xi'an Professor, but decided against that name because I'm not an expert, just a lover of these languages. I'm especially looking forward to Banu. There's a sampling of Banu text on the page for the Merchantman ship on RSI's website. Check it out if you haven't seen it. It looks pretty cool. Sometimes I pronounce words incorrectly, and I have a tendency at times to hold a vowel longer rather than change pitches. And you can always leave a comment on the video if you spot an error, and I'll address it and hopefully fix it. The other reason I need some patience from you is because there are elements of the Xi'an language that are still being formed, and the language team always has the ability to overrule anything that I say, so there may come the necessity to retract and correct just about anything in this series. With those things being said, let's start speaking. The first several parts of conversation we want to master are saying hello, goodbye, letting people know you don't understand, and asking basic questions to the people around you. Let's start with the basic greeting. Swellen. 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 The apostrophe indicates that the word starts with a high pitch and drops to normal afterward. You can find out more about pitch changes on page 14 of the PDF. You might want to ask someone to excuse you, so you can politely ask them a question, or perhaps you just want to apologize for bumping into someone while boarding a Genesis Starliner. In Xi'an, the way to say that sounds like this. Okuya. 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 And it literally means, I'm being rude. We'll talk more about the verb o later in the lesson. To let someone know you don't understand what is being said, use the phrase Hey Yonai. Hey Yonai. Hey Yonai. To say goodbye, use the phrase Athleikul. 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 The pitch starts low, goes high, and holds an extended E vowel before returning back to normal. To kindly ask someone how they are, use the phrase Asyor. Asyor. Sure. The double low markers indicate that this phrase starts low and stays low. The next phrase is a little longer way of asking someone how they are doing, and it literally means, how are you getting along? Listen and repeat. Sure. Sure. Both of the previous two phrases are used primarily to ask how someone is doing physically. It would be appropriate to respond with phrases like, I'm hungry or thirsty, but not by indicating that you are happy or sad. To ask someone how they are doing emotionally, you would use the following phrase. Sure. 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 If you're asked how you're feeling, whether it is emotionally or physically, there is an easy one-word answer that the Xi'an would accept from a foreigner, even if they would prefer to know more about you, and that word is call. 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 This is a difficult word to translate, and we won't cover the nuances of this Thai, which is a Xi'an word, in this episode, but it helps to think of it as simply meaning good. To thank someone for caring to ask about how you are, or to return a polite gesture for a gift, you need to understand the word cho. 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 Which means thanks. Let's talk about some more verbose ways to answer some of the previous questions. To let someone know how you are doing physically, you can use this phrase. Mo. 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 And supply a closing Thai to indicate how you are doing. Note that each phrase could be concluded with the word Noah, but it is perfectly acceptable to drop it because it is understood when answering a question. Here are some of the words you could use to answer with the phrase mo. Yoith. 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 Rung. 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 Swioten. 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 Swiotri. 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 Poya. 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 Twing. 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 To answer the question, how do you feel emotionally, you need to use a different phrase, which is Leo. 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 Some common terms you could finish this phrase with would be swasa. 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 Yong. 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 Hanwe. 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 Wanath. 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 Tusem. 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 Xi'an is a VSO language, which means that verbs come at the beginning of the sentence, followed by subjects, followed by objects. If you've ever studied a language like ancient Hebrew, Welsh, or Gaelic, you already know what this means. English speakers need to turn their sentences around in order to fit the Xi'an sentence pattern. Consider the following sentence. Everyone likes her. This is a typical SVO pattern in which the subject precedes the verb, which precedes the object. To rewrite this sentence in Xi'an English, we'll use the term Shinglish. It would read, likes everyone her. We have used 2 out of only 9 Xi'an verbs today in our practice. The first is one of 3 being verbs. This verb used to mean shine, glow, or emanate, and that can help you understand the meaning of the verb. It's used to indicate qualities of things, both internal and external. If you can think of qualities as characteristics that things emanate, that might help you remember how this being verb is distinguished from the other two being verbs, which we will cover in a different lesson. The second verb that we have used in this lesson is the verb o, and it's the verb used to indicate action. The PDF states that this verb must bind with a tie in almost all cases to clarify just what the action is. It may be difficult to see or understand at first, but the vast majority of the time, the verb o is not translated, nor does it carry any meaning alone. The verb acts as sort of an indicator that the next tie will be taken verbally instead of as a subject, object, adjective, or anything else. Think of the verb o as a battery that gives power to the next tie in the sentence that it binds with in order to transform it into a verb. To see an example of this, consider the phrase that we learned earlier that means, how are you getting along? If you were to separate out the main part of the sentence that we are going to concern ourselves with in this lesson, you are left with the phrase oath. Oath is a tie that means getting along, managing, or faring. But it's important that you don't think of tie as either verbs or nouns, even if they sound that way. They are elementals, literally, that carry meaning and depend on other language markers like verbs, relationals, or position in the sentence to define the roles that they take on. The final piece of grammar to discuss in this lesson is more of a trick than anything else. Did you notice that all three of the questions we learned carry the tie hyoa? This tie can be used by itself, but it's very rarely used alone. Normally, it uses very affixes to change its meaning. You don't need to worry about memorizing those affixes right now, but it is handy to know that when you hear this sound in a sentence, there's a very good chance you're being asked a question and someone is waiting for you to respond. Thanks for attending our first lesson in Basic Xi'an. Practice these words and phrases over and over again, and soon you'll be able to speak and write in Xi'an. If you enjoyed the content in this video, please consider hitting the thumbs up to like it, and click the big red button to subscribe. If you want access to worksheets and homework to help you learn Xi'an, please consider supporting me on Patreon at the link in the description box. Now, to my fellow Xenolinguists, Afleikol, o cha nui le ka verse noa. Or as we say in English, see ya in the verse.